So she's going to go on her adventure. She gets her dog, and then she meets the mentor, which is the, well, it's not the wizard. He is a wizard.
Fortune teller or something.
He's a fortune, yeah. And then she realizes, I want to go home. There's a storm coming, Dorothy, you better go home. So she is planning on going home. So she's refused her adventure call and is on her way back home when the storm comes. Yes, that's true.
Refusing the call for Luke is, my uncle won't let me. Because Luke is very whiny throughout this first 30 minutes of the movie. That's all he does is whine and gripe about how horrible his life is. But, eventually something will happen. He meets with the mentor. The things that change for Luke is that he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is the Jedi Master, and he's really exciting. And for Dorothy, they actually swap it. She meets her mentor and then refuses the call. So she meets this fortune teller who kind of talks to her about these exciting things, but then she decides to go home. So it's not always...
I guess I haven't seen The Wizard of Oz in a long time. I think he says, come with me. You can come with me on an adventure, and she's thinking, no, I don't feel like that.
Crazy version of this. Yeah, little girl, get in the van. What? I've got candy and puppies back there. Sure. Yeah.
So she was smart to refuse.
Yes.
No, I'm going home.
Take this home. That's my quote, Amanda. Do not get in the van with puppies and candy. So, okay, so does your character think about what she's going to do? That's another problem that you can have. If you're like, well, I feel like she's just off in this adventure. Make sure that she's not a complete moron. Make sure that your character does stop to weigh a risk. The serial killer just did that. I'm going after them. Okay, is that wise? Make sure that they think about what they're doing before they do it. They can still do it. Just make sure you have that moment where they're thinking about the cost of what they're about to do so that you can kind of build that tension that there is, risk here. There's something that could happen to me. This isn't necessarily a good, thing completely. Like Dorothy, she initially refuses her call because it's scary. There's a storm. I don't want to go away. I want the familiar again. The third section is really where your story really gets going, and that's accepting the call, tests, allies, and enemies. This is a lot of your book. In my book, just to tell you, my accepting the call in this book happens really quick. But in Gone Too Far, it's a little later, because she really does. She refuses the call to adventure and thinks for a while before she comes back in and says, I have to do this. So it doesn't matter. Different stories will structure in different ways. Don't feel like you're doing it wrong. If you're like, well, this feels really different than that book I read, that's okay too.
When they accept the call, the other way, there was that circle at the beginning, and I don't know if you remember, the top of the circle was the ordinary world, and it's kind of moving like this. They cross the threshold into so there's that line there. When they cross the threshold in The Wizard of Oz, you can actually see her foot crossing the threshold of the door to go outside the house after the house lands after the storm, and suddenly the world is in color. So it's a really obvious crossing the threshold moment because she's literally doing that. And the whole world is different from what it looked like before. It was all in black and white, and now it's in color. So and do you remember what she says? Because it's actually kind of funny. What does she say to the dog? Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore. So she even knows specifically that she's left. She's not, that's what she wanted. She wanted to leave Kansas, and now she has. She doesn't know where she is, but she's definitely in a different world.
Right. So and I agree, it is the perfect example because of that.
Yeah. Because, they even slow down and show her foot. Her foot going over. Yeah. So your moment in your story may be that obvious or not, but something definitely happening where you think, okay, the adventure is starting.
Right. It's when they're leaving town. They take the job. They go on the date. They sever ties with a friend. They break up with somebody. This is when you're really moving. Things are changing in their lives. Or you leave your desert planet with Obi-Wan Kenobi and you go and hang out with the scoundrel and his crossbow-wielding Yeti. How can you have not seen this movie? It's
Who hasn't
so
seen
dear
Star
to my
Wars?
heart. Many of them. I feel like we should just stop right now. I'll just play.
Let's just watch the movie.
It is a huge generation gap, but I still love that movie. But my kid loves it, man. We watch it all the time. No, Actually, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I didn't think about that aspect.
What's a movie that everybody would know? Well, like Harry Potter. Has everyone seen Harry Potter?
No.
What? No.
I hate Harry Potter.
Because Harry Potter is a pretty clear, ordinary world.
I thought all of them, and I just thought, and I also didn't want him to,
You know Harry Potter, though, that he starts off like living under his uncle's and aunt's stairs and has kind of a dismal life, and then his call to adventure is he gets the letter for Hogwarts from the owl.
He almost can't go.
Right, he almost can't go, and then he gets on the train, and that's a pretty clear threshold because he has to step through a wall.
Yeah, that's another really. So a lot of the really big stories do follow this pretty closely. You can really line them up very neatly. So here's one thing to consider about your characters when the adventure starts. This is a big thing that I see a lot of agents and editors say, I didn't like this book, or I rejected this book because of this. And it's the characters are very reactive. Like they want characters who are making choices and doing things themselves. If your poor little character, everything's just happening and they have no control, that's not necessarily a good thing. Even if bad things are happening to your character, in a lot of great stories that is happening. Gail Foreman's If I Stay is a beautiful example of that, where you have a girl who's in a coma, but she's still proactively, like she's conscious outside of her coma, but like everything is happening to her. This poor girl is nearly, so she's in this kind of suspended state, but she's still proactively trying to save herself, trying to figure out what's happening. What can I do? So she takes charge, even of that incredibly limited, opportunity that she has. She's still proactive. So make sure that your characters in this point when you accept the call are proactive.